Hello, this is Chris Fairjohn, here recording another Triple Origins draft. Possibly the last one I'm going to do of this format, since we are getting ready to move on to Battle for Zendikar. Oh, looks like we'll have to wait a couple of minutes probably for it to start, but we'll go ahead and jump in the queue now. If you haven't watched one of my drafts before, welcome. I'm not actually streaming because blah blah blah, I have a Mac, I haven't figured out how to get Twitch to work correctly, or I think I have to buy something. But in any case, I didn't want that to stop me from recording because it was something I wanted to do and stop you from seeing my pretty face. For those of you who have watched my drafts before, I'm not drinking beer this time because it's not evening. My child is still awake watching Fantasia. I'm actually back in the bedroom. Possibly more information than you need. I have a Stingray with me. And looks like we're going to get started. See, we get pack one, pick one. Oh, and a brand new microphone solution here. I am a Time Life operator. Hopefully this will cure the mic noise problems we have had. And let's see, our rare in our first pack is Willbreaker, which is sort of a high-risk, high-reward sort of card. When it's good, it can be kind of bonkers. But if you don't get enough ways to trigger it, it's kind of just unplayable, and even when you do play it, if it gets removed at instant speed, they get all their things back, and that can be a bit of a blowout. That said, the other decent cards in this pack are Lightning Javelin, Cleric of the Forward Order, Shambling Ghoul, Rogue's Passage. None of those are cards I love, so I think I'm just going to take the Willbreaker. And if that deck comes together, great. And if it doesn't, I haven't passed anything great. Like I said, cards I have first picked and word first picked, but not anything I'm bending over backwards and will likely sorely miss. And Moto is going to pick up on me. Come on. There we go. Pardon me. Okay. So pick two here. We get a Possessed Scab, which is not a bad pick. Because I do already have a blue card, although taking two 5-drops right off the bat is not necessarily where I want to be. Nothing that targets, well, disperse targets, but I can't then get the thing back. It just goes away. I think I might just take the Stalwart Avon here. I think it's the best single-colored card in the pack by a decent amount. Best blue cards in the pack are Ring Warden and Disperse, but I think I'd rather have the Avon. And like I said, I really don't want to get married to the Willbreaker. If that deck comes together, great, but I'm very willing not to play it. So here we have some very strong red cards available. Claustrophobia in blue and an Aspiring Aeronaut, which are both good, but Ravaging Blaze I just think is so much better. And seeing the Ravaging Blaze and the Boggart Brute and the Fiery Conclusion, although that's not as big of a signal, but four playable red cards in the pack. It just makes it seem very likely red is open to start with. And also Ravaging Blaze I think is just the best card in the pack. It is clunky, but the fact that it serves as both removal and a finisher, and also, yeah, it's kind of expensive to use, but most things you care about in this format have like 2 or 3 toughness, and so it's not like you're going to have to often like cram 8 mana into this thing. So I am going to take the Ravaging Blaze, and we will see where we go. So where we go is nothing in particularly, well, nothing in blue to speak of. Best cards in the pack are the Blessed Spirits and the Read the Bones. Probably Titan Strength isn't bad. I think I am just going to take the Blessed Spirits here. I think it is the best card by a reasonable margin. Even if you can't ever trigger it, a 3-mana 2/2 flyer is totally playable and even good. Oh, the Evolving Wilds is probably pretty decent as well. But anyway, I'm going to take the Blessed Spirits. And here, so maybe that red pack might have just been an anomaly, because we haven't really seen much else. We have a Majoring Bully here, which is a totally playable card. Stratus Walk is pretty fun with Willbreaker. Steal Everything gives it flying. However, Sizzle Starfish, even in this fairly aggressive format, Sizzle Starfish is great. It lets them, and if we're looking at blue-white flyers, which we might be, this blocks early on the ground. And it just lets you, if they can't kill it and can't put a lot of pressure on you quickly, it just takes over the game. You just sort of get to basically look at 2 cards a turn. So here, the best cards in the pack are Fetid Imp and Might of the Masses, but neither of them are in our color. Nissa's Revelation is a card that it would be nice if the format was slow enough to play it, because it does look like a fun card, but it's really not. And also, since there's so many renowned creatures, a lot of the creatures don't have high powers and toughnesses because they get bigger after they attack. This is the problem with the green enchantment that lets you draw a card with something 3 power or greater, but there just aren't that many green cards that have 3 power or greater because they all get it after they attack with their renown triggers. I think I'm just going to take the Screeching Scab here. I feel reasonably confident we're in blue. 2 drops are important, and I'd better hurry. Let's see here. We have a not very good white card. We have a pretty good black card, and we did have a Fetid Imp last turn. Pretty good Prickle Boar. No white. Well, sorry, that white. I might just take the Bonding Construct. Nothing else here. I mean, Artificer's Epiphany is fine. And early defense is important. This is a much better card in this format than it would be in many others. So now, gosh, that's a late Fetid Imp and a late Crowan Sergeant. Wow. This must have been a pretty nuts pack. Because almost everything in it is playable. Let's see. Well, I might just take the Water Courser, just because of where we are color-wise. Yeah, I think I am going to do that. And not much here. I'll take the Calculated Dismissal. I don't necessarily intend to play it. Nothing here for us. Black has looked somewhat open. Elemental Bond was the card I was trying to think of before. I'll take the Return Centaur. I don't have any particular plans to move into black, but we'll see what happens. Nothing here for us, really. I always feel in theory I could sideboard Healing Hands, but I've never found the time to, or found the right spot. Again, nothing here for us. Psychic Rebuttal is not a playable card in Limited. There's just not enough that targets you. Well. So, the end of this pack did not go great. I just never saw anything so powerful in black. I could have had double Fetid Imp and been looking at blue-black control. Maybe I should have been, because the white seemed to mostly dry up. We saw that somewhat late Amperant Tactician and a late Knight. That Knight, though, the 3/2 Knight with Renown, is not as impressive a card as I thought it might be when the format started, just because in the world where everyone is worried about having a 2-drop to trade with, a 2-power creature that you can trade with on turn 2, getting a third turn 3-power creature with 2 toughness, it's hard to get it through. Well, okay then. Well, of course, this is no signal, because we are, pick 1 here. Kythians, whatever they are, Irregulars is great. It goes great with the Willbreaker. We also did have a Topin Freeblade in that pack, which is also great. Sorry, I think I clicked that a little fast. Moto has done some obnoxious things where it yanks picks out from under me now and then. I think it's not doing that anymore, but I get trigger happy. So the Knight, Knight of the White Orchid is, I'm pretty certain, the pick here. It's one of the better cards in the pack. Undersea Troll is probably the best, and Unholy Hunger, but obviously we are nowhere near those colors. Celestial Flare is alright, but I will take the Knight. Our mana, well, actually, we can kind of go heavier white with what we're looking right now, although if we pick up a Claustrophobia, we'll have a somewhat awkward mana base. Come on, Moto. Okay. So here, Disperse, I think, is the pick. Hydrolash is a card that seems like it should be playable. I just haven't really found the spot for it. Guardian Automaton is not bad either. We don't really have a lot of ways to interact at this point. Send to Sleep is kind of a fun combo with Will Breaker. Just the problem is that Send to Sleep is such a bad card on its own that I rarely want to play it with even if I have the Will Breaker. So I think I will take the Disperse. Again, can't combo that with Will Breaker because as soon as you disperse, you get the creature momentarily and then it comes back to your hand. Because Disperse, unlike Void Mage Prodigy, is not a May ability. So here, the white, well, there's a Charging Griffin, which is fine. I think Ring Warden Owl is better enough that I'm going to take it here. I don't think I'm desperate enough for 2-drops yet that I need to take the Maritime Guard. There's also the Goldforge Sentinel, but the difference between 5 and 6 is actually pretty big. Oh, and Displacement Wave, I have never seen that card be particularly effective, quite frankly. Let's see here. So here we've got Alchemist Vial, which again goes nicely with Will Breaker. However, I really don't want to go too far out of my way to make Will Breaker work, and Amperin Tactician is just a good card. There's also Stratus Walk, which goes well with both Will Breaker and Blessed Spirit, but Amperin Tactician is enough better that I'm just going to take it here. If I pick up a late, I mean, either of those two cards could possibly wheel out of this pack, and I'd be happy to run one. So here we have another Bonding Construct, the Stratus Walk or the Amperin Tactician. Again, a Stratus Walk, but once again, Stratus Walk in some board states just does nothing. While it's nice with the Will Breaker, I'd really rather run it in at a time when I have some big creatures to beat down with, and this deck doesn't really have that. I mean, blue-green, Stratus Walking a Rock Smaller, so it can be a pretty big game. But, Stratus Walking a Water Courser, not so good. Amperin Tactician, though, I will take that. I do need some more early drops, but if I get some, hopefully I will get some, Amperin Tactician can be pretty nice because it just makes them very hard to block. So we could take a second Disperse. It's not a card I'm really thrilled to run a bunch of. It definitely gets worse in multiples because at some point you're just resetting their board over and over again. And they are just continuing to hit you. All you're doing is delaying them. I don't have anything for Armancer to get back yet. Though if I took that, I'd be even more likely to take Auras than I already was. So I think I will take the Auramancer, just because I do have the Will Breaker and the Blessed Spirits, and it's an early drop, even if it's not a great one. So here, I could take the Knight. As I said, I'm not very impressed with it. I'll take the Mighty Leap here, actually. I could use some tricks. Again, they're good with the Will Breaker, and tricks are just good in general in this format. You're usually beating down. The removal is generally not great, and so it can sort of function as faux removal. So now I will take the Stratus Walk. Like I say, you can get it back with the Auramancer, it bumps the Blessed Spirits, and it works with the Will Breaker. So that seems like enough synergy to me to run it. Here, I really, actually no, a Crowan Jailer is definitely the pick with Will Breaker in the pile. It's not a card I love, but that plus Will Breaker again can just kind of go off. Nothing here really. I will be surprised and disappointed if I run the Even Battle Priest. I don't think I will. We seem to be in pretty good shape for playables. I'll hate the Return Centaur. Nothing in here is really playable or even good. And I don't know if I will run a second Stratus Walk, but I'll grab it. I mean, there's nothing else there. And unsurprising Rabid Bloodsucker going essentially last pick outside of the land. Alright, so we're in pretty good shape for playables here. We've got 14 creatures. We get an unplayable rare out of the bat. off the bat, out of the gates, whatever I'm trying to say. This is not a great pack for us. It's probably just Grasp of the Hieromancer here, which is certainly a card I am reasonably happy to run in this deck, although, I mean, it's multiple targeting. That with Willbreaker can really just, like, if they can't kill the Willbreaker, it's just, you know, you just take everything they put down. However, it's not really a card I was hoping to first pick, but there's just nothing else, unfortunately, in this pack, so I will take it. So here we've got, all right. So we've got Anointer and Anchor. Actually, Anointer, once again, I said I wasn't going to go too well on the Willbreaker, but again, Anointer is a card I'm happy to run anyway. I might take the Anchor instead of it if I didn't have the Willbreaker. And yeah, I really need some more early... I mean, this is an early drop creature, so... But also, you know, when they attack, I can give them +1/+1, and guess what? Then their creature is mine, so... Anointer it is. So here... Ooh, wow, that is a... What is it? So I'm taking this Topin Freeblade. It's a pretty late one. I mean, just because they tend to go in, like, the top 3 picks. What was that, 3rd pick in the pack? Yeah, well, I guess it wasn't that late. So it was. Oh, Separatist Void Mage is perfect. I'm not all that stacked up for 4s. It combos, in case you aren't aware of, Separatist Void Mage is a May, but you still target. So you target a thing and then not bounce it, and then if you have Willbreaker out, you steal it. And if you don't have Willbreaker out, then you can bounce one of their things, and ain't nothing wrong with that. So here, now see, Meteorite is an example of a card I'm not going to pick up. So so 1s and 2s. I mean, the 1s aren't really, so things I can block and kill 2-drop with. Bonded Construct, 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess Sigiled Starfish does not block it, but it does kill it. Does not kill it, but does block it. I'm waffling between that and the Knight. Sorry, the Maritime Guard Knight. I think I'll take the Knight. I think I'm okay for 2-drops. And Maritime Guard is just deeply unexciting. There was even an early Yoke Dock, so maybe able to wheel, which really does 90% of the same job. So here, I think I prefer the trick here to, you know, Charging Griffin is totally reasonable. I would not mind running one. But Enshrouding Mist, 1-mana tricks are just great. Not to be a broken record, but it's good with the Willbreaker. Okay, well, I could turn to Frog. I am pretty removal light. Really, I don't have any other than stealing things with the Willbreaker. But there's also a Scab Goliath, which is just a really hard... Some decks just can do nothing about that card once it's down. I think I'm going to take the Scab Goliath. I think it's definitely a better card. So here I could take the Scrap Skin. Whatever I'm taking, I'm probably not main decking. I'll take the Scrap Skin. It'll let us actually gives another defender against flyers if we need it, and maybe a little more offense if we're up against a more controlling deck. Nothing here for us really. I'll just take the 2-drop. I don't think I'm going to run double Auramancer. Bone to Ash is something I could board in on the play. Yeah, here I'll take the Yoke Docks. I might even start it. I mean, I could take Nivix Barrier, but again, this is an example of like the sort of bad card you don't want to run to enable Willbreaker, because if you don't draw the Willbreaker or it dies or whatever, then it's just kind of a bad card. Yoke Docks is not a great card. I may not start it, but at least it gives me some early defense if I need it to board in. Nothing here. And nothing for me here. And nothing for me here. Okay, so we have cuts to make though. So we're 27 right now. This is almost always a 17 land format. I see no reason this will be any different. So I don't think I'm going to run the yoke docks, at least not start it. I feel like 2 Stratus Walks is probably just too many cards that don't really do anything on their own. 2 more cuts here. Oh, I'm going to cut the Scrap Skin Drake in a format where you really care about blocking their 2 drops. Having a 3 drop that doesn't block is just not good unless you know you're up against something where either they have a lot of flyers and you want a way to block them, because I don't have a lot of ways to block flyers if that comes up. I've got the Aven, I've got the Blessed Spirits, and eventually I've got the Ring Warden now, but early flyers can definitely be a problem for this deck. Or I suppose I could Stratus Walk something to block, but so 1 more cut. So what are my possibilities? I could just cut the Bonded Construct. I could cut the Jailer, which normally would be an easy cut, and I might still be the cut. I'm really only considering it because of the Willbreaker. So if I don't have the Jailer, what have I got to? What works with the Willbreaker? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's pretty good. Probably don't need the. Probably don't need it. Need the Jailer. Defending against early stuff is probably more of a concern than being able to enable the Willbreaker with 1 more thing. Other thing I could get rid of actually is the Auramancer. The only thing I have I have 2 things to get back. I've got the Grasp and the Stratus Walk to get back. Those are both things that I would expect to end up in my graveyard. Sometimes you have like Claustrophobias and the white 4-mana Suppression Bonds, and Auramancer's not as big a deal with those. Just because they don't often end up in the graveyard. They often just end up sitting on one of your creatures, unless you have a way to sacrifice it, which I don't. So yeah, I think I get rid of the Jailer. I just really dislike that card. It's way too slow. And if I draw it with a Willbreaker, yay, I can go off. But if I draw it by itself, or I just can't afford the Willbreaker yet, or whatever, it's just bad. So I think I'm gonna go with this. Let's figure out our mana base here. It's gonna be a little stretched. We definitely want more white than blue. Can I go? I'd love to be able to go 10-7 with the Knight. I mean, I only have 2 double blue costs. They're both 5 drops. Yeah, I think I'm going to go 10-7. What do you think, Moto? Moto probably thinks like, oh, 10-7. All right, well, Moto agrees with me. Always worrying. All right. Okay, so that seems reasonable. Against a slower deck with big creatures, we can put in the Akroan Jailer. Against something super fast, we can put in the Yoke Docks. Against a lot of flyers, we can put in the Scrap Skin Drake and maybe the other Stratus Walk. We also have the Bone to Ash we can think about boarding in, or the Calculated Dismissal. But I'd probably actually do the Dismissal here, just because I'm only running 7 blue sources and I'm not going to add another one just for Bone to Ash. Alright. Let's see how this goes. Hello again. So, unfortunately, when I tried to record the games from that draft, the client slowed down to an absolute crawl. I don't know what happened. Didn't happen before. But I'm going to try to go ahead and show you what happened on the replays. Unfortunately, round one, because I restarted the client, didn't actually get captured by Moto. So I'm going to start with round two here. Suffice to say that I won round one. I don't remember too much about it. It was a couple of days ago at this point, or yesterday, I guess, at this point. So anyway, here's what happened in round two. Show you a little bit what this deck did. This was my opening hand. Obviously pretty great, so I kept it on the draw. I got to go with turn one Anointer into a turn two Free Blade, and that is a pretty frightening start most of the time. Opponent let off an Undercity Troll, which is also a pretty frightening start most of the time. So here is the Free Blade. Opponent swung in with the Troll. Not much I could do there. Did not have a turn three play, which was nice. So now I was able to come back in with the Free Blade. For 3 damage. And make it Renown. And follow up with the Aven. So opponent started holding back the Troll on defense. Which meant I couldn't swing him with the Free Blade anymore. I take that back. I could swing with the Free Blade because I could always pump it, make it a 4/4, and make him spend the regeneration mana if what he wants to do is block. So in I went. And he did block. And I pumped it, and I'm just as happy to make him spend his whole turn doing that. Oh, sorry. Now I remember. Here's what happened. I figured he would only block if he was if he had a trick, which he did. And I knew I could trade it for Enshrouding Mist. Unfortunately, I was hoping it might be Might of the Masses, in which case he might figure he could do Might. Well, actually, either way, I wasn't going to be able to do better than trade the trick. But trading the trick was fine. Oops. I'm sorry. Let things get away from me there. Yep. A little bit. But anyway, so I put down the Screeching Scab. And now we look like we're in pretty strong shape here, although we still have 4 cards in hand. Turn 5, he uses Swift's Reckoning to kill my air attacker. But now I'm able to get down Sizzled Starfish, and being on a board where they're just kind of staring at each other when I have a Starfish is just fine with me. Turn 6, he puts down Sigil of Valor, which is not great on this board, although it is potentially frightening. If he puts down a couple more creatures, he can start swinging in with the Troll, which means he can regenerate it and have it big enough where I can't effectively block it anymore. I still short my blue mana for my Ring Warden, which would be nice. But as I said, I do have the Starfish to start digging through my deck. Assuming I have time to do so. So he does have a play here. It's his Cloud Recluse, though, which is not exactly what he wanted to see here, I would imagine. He could have, well, no, he didn't want to suit up the Troll here because I would have pretty happily traded a couple cards for it, I think. And then I saw my Willbreaker, which I believe I kept. Yeah, I figured with the Anointer on board and nothing much happening, I could afford to keep that and wait for my second island, especially since I could scry away basically anything irrelevant. Because Willbreaker just seemed like it could really blow the game open, since it's a good way to deal with Undercity Troll. So he suited up the Sigil on the Hitch Claw, and then it didn't do anything. Not exactly sure what the point of that was. I guess may as well spend a mana for it now. So I bottomed a Plains and drew another one. But now I was able to put down the Scab Goliath, which again was a creature he was not going to be able to just ignore. But again, I had no attacks this turn, but now he had a threat that he had to deal with. So down came Nissa, and with the land he got to turn her on immediately, and then he dropped a 4/4, which wasn't too bad. So now he could stack up all my blockers and kill the Goliath in theory. Or actually, no, he couldn't even kill the Goliath in theory, but he could stop it from killing Nissa. And so now Kythian's Irregulars came out, which is obviously something I keep. One more island and I can turn on Willbreaker plus Kythian's Irregulars, and that's just ridiculous. And at this point I tapped down the Troll and went ahead and swung in with the Goliath, since the best he could do was basically chump off the 4/4 to keep his Nissa alive. So it did mean he would get to draw an extra card the next turn, but if that's all he got out of Nissa, then I would live with that. So next he put down a Somber Wild Alpha, which is not really helping him a lot on this board state. And I put a Bonded Construct on the bottom. Still no island, but Blessed Spirits. Not a card that could get in yet, but, well, good with the help of the Irregulars. And now I was able to tap down the Recluse and both kill Nissa and get in for some damage. I did decide to hold back. Yeah, obviously I didn't attack with Kythians into the Summer Wild Alpha because I'm sure that's a trade. Oh, actually, no, it wouldn't have been a trade because of the Anointer. But I was playing around, you might have the Masses or any number of tricks you could have here. Didn't see any good reason to throw away the Kythians Irregulars into that. Since I'm so far ahead, I may as well play around stuff. So now opponent is just quite far behind, and he continues to shuffle the Sigil of Valor around, but to no real effect. And finally I got my island, which I did keep, since now I could put the Willbreaker down and even have double white up to steal if I wanted to. I didn't do that yet though. I wanted to keep it up. Pretty much to play around Wild Instincts, which, as you're about to see, turned out to be a good idea. He did have a Celestial Flare here, which did get me a little bit. I could have held back there. But at this point I was so far it didn't matter, but that was probably a mistake. I probably should have held back because I was in no rush, and the next turn I'd probably get to swing in with multiple things, and the Celestial Flare just wouldn't have hurt as much. But I have to be honest, I just did not think about it. So he tries to Wild Instincts the Troll and the Willbreaker, but unfortunately I could then steal the Troll by tapping it with Kythian's Irregulars, and that means when Wild Instincts attempts to resolve, it has an illegal target because it has to be a target creature you control and opponent controls, and now opponent, me, controls both of them. So the spell fizzles, And opponent scoops. And on to game number 2, which Moto is cleverly listing as game number 1, so don't be confused. But this is in fact game number 2, as you'll be able to tell from the clocks on the left. So game number 2, opponent started up for the Visionary, while I again got to play Starfish. And turn 2 Starfish is just almost always something I'm thrilled to have happen. So I did scry first. I didn't really care about the Visionary getting in. I really wanted to hit that third land drop. Plains was definitely the better of the 2 land drops to hit, but any land drop was going to be good. So I put down the Screeching Scab so I could block the Knight. If he had a trick for it, I could use Enshrouding Mist to trade for the trick. Or a Sigil, for that matter. So now he could Sigil up the Knight, thinking he was going to be able to get a free swing in here. Oh, he did not do that. Sorry. My mistake. So once again, I'm short a land drop here. But I was able to play down Blessed Spirits. But now he did have a pretty good board for Vigil, and he was able to get his Knight in, but of course I knew I had Separatist Void Mage to reset it when I needed to. And really I just needed to develop my board and buy some time here until I can get Kythian's Irregulars online, because that thing blanks the Sigil pretty well, obviously, since I can just tap whatever creature has it. So he did have an Aerial Volley to take out my Blessed Spirits, and he mysteriously moves the Sigil around. So I actually did not. I bottomed the Stalwart Haven. Really, I mostly needed a land here, although Disperse is not a terrible draw. It definitely lets me put him back quite a bit on tempo here. Assuming his plan is to attack with 1 creature, although I think he actually ends up attacking with multiples, which turns out pretty well for me, since I can reset one thing and use Enshrouding Mist to peel off something else, which I do believe is what I do. Or actually, I think I just am happy to trade that, keep the Enshrouding Mist up. He drops a Recluse, which, you know, that's just a lot of creatures, which is... So now I do see a Plains, which I am more than happy to keep. I did at this point just play down the Void Mage. I think that might have been a mistake. I just didn't want my Irregulars to get killed. And so if I do another land, then I could play it and have Mist up, since I did see at least 1 Wild Instincts. But of course the problem is now he can swing in with the Elvish Visionary as a 4/4, and I can't really do anything about it. And that was basically on board. So I'm down to 8. So opponent has a real clock going on. And I'm able to scry Auramancer, which I put back on the bottom. So I really need a land, and then I get one. So now I'm able to put up Kythian's Enforcers with Enshrouding Mist up. Now at this point, if I remember correctly, opponent kind of surprised me. I thought he would have swung in with the Knight on its own, but he instead decided to swing with everything. With only 8 life left, I can't really afford to play around much, but I think the Enshrouding Mist is going to be able to save a creature, since there's not too much he can do at instant speed to blow me out. I mean, he could play a trick, but Enshrouding Mist will still at least save the creature, if not allow me to kill his. So I did go ahead and play Enshrouding Knight on Kythian's, and yeah, so he just kind of threw away 2 creatures there, which I found fairly mysterious at the time. I went to 6. But now I got to untap with 2 activations of Kythian's Irregulars, which was going to be pretty hard to beat. I had plays I could make there, but at this point I just kind of wanted to use Kythian's Irregulars to stall out until I had the board stabilized. I didn't really feel like it was stabilized at this point. With him still having a couple cards in hand and the Sigil of Valor. So he does unfortunately have the Wild Instincts here. I am able to tap down his 2 creatures before Kythian's Irregulars dies. Yeah, but then I do get the Scab Goliath, which means I get to have something. Even with a Sigil of Valor, he's not likely to be able to block anytime soon. Or rather, not going to be able to swing into it anytime soon. And again, I could have swung with the Void Mage here, but at only 6 life, I need to play around, removal basically. And, the game going long is just going to be good for me as I get to scry another land to the bottom, draw another land, unfortunately, but... So now I do get to put down my Amber Tactician. And I go ahead and swing. Opponent doesn't appear to have much left in the tank. He does block the Void Mage, and I get in for 7. Opponent plays a Stalwart Haven, which is not doing a whole... Well, he doesn't have to get in for much, of course. At this point, I am compelled to trade off for his Elvish Visionary, which is not great, but reducing his creature count with that Sigil up is probably good in general. So I do get to scry another land to the bottom, just like drawing a card. Unfortunately, the card I drew was another land. So now I put the Stratus Walk on the Starfish. I just wanted the Scab Goliath to be able to block on the ground still if I needed it to. But I did also want to scry and make sure I drew something like gas. And the Scrapskin Drake actually did count because it could block the Stalwart Haven, unless of course he played another creature. But it did allow me to keep swinging because at worst case scenario I could chump. And the Scab Goliath was threatening to end the game pretty quickly here. He was going to have to start chumping and taking trample damage pretty quickly. So he moved it over to the Hitsclaw Recluse, which of course did mean I needed it to chump block, which was kind of... I didn't really see that line. Kind of a mistake. I don't mind chumping here, though. I mean, I have to, I think. I can't just take damage. He could have Titan Strength, or Titanic Growth, rather, very easily, and just end the game that way. And so now I got a Mighty Leap, which ought to be enough to finish the game. I could have swung with the Starfish. It would have telegraphed it a little bit, but I don't think there's anything he could have done. So he thinks about it, wonders if he's playing around the trick, decides not to, and I get him. So there you go. That was match 2. Like I said, match 1 did not get recorded. So let's go on to match 3. Let's see if game 1 is actually game 1. No, it is not. Alright, so game 1, if I remember correctly, these games were not terribly close in the finals. I think opponent mulliganed, yeah, he mulliganed down to 6. I mean, I didn't have a great draw here myself, but I did decide it was worth keeping on the draw, and drawing a island at the top was obviously a really good way to start. I got a token free blade, but fortunately I had my bonded construct to be able to trade off with it if I needed to, or even eat a trick. And if he did have a trick, I could disperse to basically 1-for-1 with the trick. But he did not. Then I was able to put down my Knight of the Pilgrim's Road, which could just eat the free blade if he didn't have a trick. And at this point, I think opponent stopped drawing lands for a while. So here, I'll just hit play on this game because I think it got pretty ugly from there. As you can see, I was able to run out my knight now. So both knights up. He did get his second color down and get the free blade back down, but I was just able to swing. He was kind of compelled to double block one of my creatures, and I got to blow him out with the trick. But he just did not have a good draw, and I had kind of an insane one. Glory Chaser really is not what you want to be playing when you're losing. So I did allow him to trade it off for my 2-1 because it just wasn't going to do anything else at that point in the game. And now, of course, the game is pretty well in hand. I think we saw Celestial Flare here, so I did get to kill a thing. But Kithian's Irregulars against an opponent who's stumbling is just kind of not fair. He's not going to be able to put enough creatures out to do anything about it. I have 4 white mana up. So there was that game. And the final game, I don't think was all that much, all that competitive either, to be honest. I started out with, again, a slightly land-light hand, but on the draw, and with, once again, my 1-drop to hold off early aggression, like that, I was pretty happy with it. Then I was able to put down something else. Either of these could trade for the Majoring Bully. Obviously, the Bonded Construct is preferable, since Screeching Scab, as mediocre as it is, has no restrictions. Acolyte was a strong draw. Obviously he's not going to trade it off, so I get to race him a little bit here, since I don't really have anything that can block him yet. But really, we're kind of even on this race. I mean, he's going to start swinging for 4 a turn. I swing back for 4 a turn for the time being. Brief intermission for Moto freaking out. Oh, come on. We will wait. There it is. But now I'm able to put down the Emperor Tactician. Oh, sorry, I take it back. I was able to put down the Stratus Walk. So to pump up the Blessed Spirits and get pretty well ahead in the race with the Emperor Tactician and the Grasp still in hand to sort of cement that advantage. I still can't block that, but again, if he can't play anything else, I'm just not going to have much trouble racing him at all. And then I went for take him down to 3, and that was that. Anyway, so yeah, 2, not, he never got white mana that game. Just weren't very good games in the finals. But anyway, with 3 a node with that deck, we, at least in that second game, I think in the first round, which we didn't see, I don't think I really got to go off with Willbreaker. Definitely that second round is where I got to do that. Basically blowing out the Wild Instincts with the Kithian's Irregulars and Willbreaker. That was kind of the most interesting game, I thought, where with the big, huge board stall. Anyway, thanks for watching. Sorry for this sort of ex post facto summary of the games. I hope it was still interesting. and a decent thing to do after the draft. Hopefully Moto won't slow to a ridiculous crawl next time I try to record a draft. Like I said, I don't know why that happened. It didn't happen before. Anyway, hope you enjoy my continuing struggles with hardware. Thanks.